In this video, I'm going to talk about A Momentary Lapse of Reason. It was released on September 7th, 1987. It's celebrating its 35th anniversary. This is the first Pink Floyd album without Roger Waters. He left the band in 1985, and the last album was The Final Cut. That album is one of those albums either loved or hated by fans. Richard Wright returned to the band. It's his first album since The Wall. The songs were mostly written by David Gilmour. It's not a concept album like many other albums, and during this time the band was going through a lot of legal troubles. Roger Waters and David Gilmour were really not getting along. Even like when you open up the album, you see the gatefold, you see a photo, it's just David Gilmour and Nick Mason. It's kind of like they're a two-piece band, and even Richard Wright was kind of just listed in the credits. And they wanted to make it clear that Roger Waters was not part of this band anymore. So for recording on the album, they used a lot of additional musicians. So for example, co-producer Bob Ezrin, he played some keyboards. Carmine Appice, he played drums on one of the songs. And the album has 11 songs. It's 51 minutes long. All the songs were written by David Gilmour. Some of the songs were kind of collaborative efforts. Out of the 11 songs, there are 4 instrumentals, 3 singles, and the rest are album cuts. So I'll talk about them in that fashion. So the 4 instrumentals, Signs of Life, that opens the album. So let me tell you a little quick story. So for the past week, I have been listening to this album right before I go to sleep. I like to put on an album at low volume, and it helps me fall asleep. Like this first song is like so relaxing. Like I'm usually like asleep like right after this one. Now, this song is technically not an instrumental. It contains some spoken parts by Nick Mason. He reads a few lines of a poem. But I'm calling it an instrumental, and to be honest with you, I didn't really hear him when I listened to it. The track also includes some sounds of David Gilmour's boatman rowing across the Thames or Thames River, or that river in London, in England, whatever it's called. Another instrumental, Round and Around. It's a short song with John Carrion on keyboards, Tony Levin on bass. They're well-known musicians who have worked with many bands. The song is basically a transition from like Yet Another Movie to New Machine Part 1. Another instrumental, Terminal Frost. So according to David Gilmour, the song had been written many years before the album came out. And the song is kind of like a break between like the two songs, A New Machine Parts 1 and 2, and it's like very like jazzy. It has some like female singers in the background, kind of like Great Gig in the Sky and like that song from Dark Side of the Moon. It's just laid back and relaxing. Now I'll talk about the singles. Learning to Fly. It was very popular back then. It reached number 70 on the US Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on Album Rock Tracks. Surprisingly, it didn't chart in the UK, but it was actually number 1 in Spain. David Gilmour wrote lyrics at the time. He was actually learning to fly, in real life. He's learned to fly airplanes, and they also, another interpretation is kind of like learning new things, having a big change in life, starting over, kind of like what the band was doing without Roger Waters. They had a music video. It was very popular, filmed in like this mountainous region in Canada. The music video won an MTV Music Award for Best Concept Video in 1988. And it's just one of those iconic songs, and, one of the, out of the 2 albums released during the 80s, this is probably one of the most iconic songs, and probably like the most popular Pink Floyd song for the MTV generation, or possibly something from The Wall. But anyway, another great song, a single, The Dogs of War. And the word I would describe this song is epic. It's heavy. Now, you don't really use that word with Pink Floyd, but it just kind of is. Type of song just builds a lot of suspense. Kind of like it builds up during the first half of the song and then goes right into that classic Gilmour solo, followed by a saxophone solo. So the song is different, but very good. This was one of the lesser known singles from the album. The track was a minor rock hit in the US. It reached 16 on MTV's Video Countdown in May '88. It's an anti-war song about politicians who orchestrate wars, and this is the one song where Carmine Appice plays drums. Another single, One Slip. This is like an 80s sounding Pink Floyd song. A lot of electronics in the sound. It's a good one, has a nice melody. And that song was first released as a B-side to Learning to Fly, then re-released as the third single in the UK where it was a minor hit, and the fourth single in the US where it did very well on the Billboard mainstream rock track. One more single on the Turning Away. Very good songs, very laid back, and I think this one has a style similar to the Wall album. It's classic Pink Floyd. It has the signature guitar solo and very melodic. And this was the second single from the album. It reached number one on the Billboard album rock tracks. That was in early 1988. The song reached number 55 on the UK singles chart, and this is one of the more political tracks, released after Roger Waters left the band, and also called a protest song and a power ballad. So that's what it is. Now for the album cuts, there's 4 more songs. Yet Another Movie. This was very kind of like space rock, very dreamy, kind of gets to the guitar solo, and it's just classic Pink Floyd. This is a song they performed at every show on the tours between 87 and 89. They played the song during the first set, and this is featured on the live album Delicate Sound of Thunder. Then we got New Machine Part 1, which is kind of dark. It's about spending your life in a body just like waiting to die. It's about the fact that the waiting will eventually end. The first part is slow and atmospheric, not too long, under 2 minutes, and the song is split with that song Terminal Frost like in the middle of the album. And then New Machine Part 2, it's just very short, 40 seconds, not much going on, just very ambient. The last song is called Sorrow, and it's close to 9 minutes. Now, there's some live versions on 1988's Delicate Sound of Thunder and 1995's Pulse. Another song just has some of their heavier sound. It's slow and dark. It's just a good song. Has that typical David Gilmour style, lots of guitar solos, and an overall relaxing feel. So that is all. I think it's just a solid album. Came out at a time when the band was not really doing a lot. They only put out one more album in the 90s. And then in 2014, that's kind of like an album filled with like stuff that was on the cutting room floor. This is kind of a David Gilmour solo album, but it's kind of highly respected by Pink Floyd fans. So that's why I wanted to do a video on it. It is celebrating an anniversary, and that is all. So thanks for watching. Remember, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.